White looks to throw. He wants Boyd deep. Help over the top. Boyd adjusts. 1,000 and a score. Wilson drives in. She scores. Jensen, Grayson, give and go. Jensen elevates and she slams it down again. Arlo, top of the box, a drive, and he fires it in. This Cannon hammers the back line. Striplings fires it up. Spencer in space. Just got it. Touchdown, Sarah Catholic. Blocks quick out to Martin. Breaks the tackle. Martin cuts far side. There goes Quinton. See you later. One play. Touchdown, Leopards. Quinton Martin for 6 from 36.
Welcome into episode number 82 of the Valley Sports Guys podcast, live here from His Place Coffee Community and more in Monessen. Jose Negron alongside Jeremy Slew and Alex Lyons for another episode of the award-winning VSG podcast. And guys, we're feeling a little different this morning. I feel like it's just
we're all fired up.
We're all fired up. We're
all
ready to go. We've been talking about some of the things we want to discuss. We're going to talk about some high school sports as always. Of course, that's our niche here in the Mon Valley Independent Sports Department. Whether it's in print or whether it's on MVI Live, we have you covered, and we'll have you covered here for episode number 82 of the Valley Sports Guys podcast. But we'll start out with a little football talk. I actually have to get my little
your poop together.
Yeah, my roundup. I did not pull up the roundup and everything from Saturday's paper, which of course we have with coverage of Friday night football every single week. But we'll start out with some football action. And of course, Jeremy, you were very busy on the beach. The Bell Vernon area Leopards just love goal line stands. Like they like close games.
They live on the goal line.
And they thrive on the goal line.
There are basically 3 goal line stands in that game.
Can we start with the midlife crisis, though? I've gotten to the point in my life where my kid is going to games and just running around with her friends.
Yeah.
Like, that's just –
I mean, listen, Jeremy, I don't mean to be the one to say this, but you're getting older.
I am.
So.
But, yeah, I mean, it was a great game. I mean, both teams played phenomenally. I wouldn't say Matt Humbert would think his team played phenomenally, but it was just a great football game. Bell Vernon comes away 21-14 win in overtime, and talking to Coach Humbert after the game, overtime benefited Bell Vernon, and I'm sure Alex was there. He would agree, because once you shorten that field and you're at home on that goal line and your back's against the wall, Coach Humbert was very confident they get to overtime and they're going to be able to pull out that win. But a little bit maybe a questionable play call there at the end. I don't know. Coach Miller said that's the play you want. The coaches upstairs said that's the play they didn't want.
I thought we were going to see some outside.
What did they say? They said that they ran the wrong play, didn't they?
The one coach I think thought they did, but I wonder. It was just Coach Miller. I think trying to catch everybody off guard. But
I can't blame him for that.
No. I'll put it this way: the one reason I don't like that call, Tarker was so good at disguising the football.
He was good at the fake. He was very good on the
I'll tell you,
fake.
I could not tell a bunch of times where Tarker was able to keep the ball in his pocket. It looked like Anthony Boyd was met for like a 3-yard loss. And talk about, he got punished in that game.
He did.
When the ball was not in his hand.
Yeah, he got, every play. And that's the life as a fullback in the triple option. You're getting hit literally every play. But I think in the end, look at his brother. I think that made his brother that much better, as a running back. But, the Leopards, what can you say? 3 times inside the 5-yard line, they stopped them from scoring.
And it was everyone. It wasn't just that D line. You saw Moody and Jetico burst up from the linebacker position. Wade, Cruz on the 1 goal line stand. He came up, made a big play. Yeah. And it was just impressive what Bell Vernon was able to do. And
I think the big issue, once again, you saw for the second straight year on the other side of the ball, Jeremy, Keith Spell controlled the line of scrimmage defensively for McKeesport.
Him and Courtney Dunn were phenomenal on that defensive line, and it's escaping my mind right now, but the big guy in the middle that they had listed as 390 pounds, I don't think he's 390
The one their coach said, there's no way he's
there's
390.
No way, right. But, I mean, he just ate up the middle. Luke Breyer had a long day at the center position. But, in the end, you got to give it up to Bell Vernon. And here's the thing. Quentin Martin, 6 carries, 10 yards. But they still came out and they still beat one of the top, I would say one of the top 3 teams in Quad A.
Yeah.
Behind Aliquippa, TJ, and McKeesport. I think those are 1, 2, 3.
I think if you look at that Big 7
4A.
conference, it's McKeesport and TJ.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And
without question.
That last game of the year is going to be phenomenal.
It seems like it's every year. That's the game it comes down to.
And Coach Humbert, I got to give a shout out to Tanner Moody just coming downhill the way he did. What was it? 12 tackles he finished
Seemed
with.
like, yeah.
He was phenomenal. And Coach Miller said about that play call is the way Bell Vernon defended them. They were selling out on the fullback dive the whole game. We saw it on Garrett Tarker's touchdown run. They sold out on fullback dive. He pulls it, runs. Nobody even realized he had the ball until he was in the end zone. Same thing on that last play, I think, was Miller's, reasoning for trying the pass. But shout out to Anthony Cruz. 2 big touchdowns, a 65-yard touchdown run on an end around, and he had the 31-yard catch on an absolute dime that Braden Locks delivered. But Coach Humbert said they wanted to attack the perimeter on them. They just couldn't get it done because the middle of their line was being blown up. And it's not often you see Bell Vernon's offensive line blown up the way they were against McKeesport. But in the end, Bell Vernon gets to overtime, and they come away with the win. Braden Locks, it was just a matter of, like Coach Humbert said, the game plan was, especially in overtime, go 5 wide and let Braden Locks do his thing in between the tackles. That's what he ended up doing. 7 yards on the first run, 3-yard touchdown run in the second. And, the extra point, Willie Schwerer coming back from his torn ACL. He had a big game, big kicks, extra points all around.
Both punters were outstanding in that game. Colin Smith and Willie Schwerer are putting balls inside the 10-yard line consistently. I think Smith put one down to the 2 in the game. It was Bray. I went and pulled up my spotter board, the big nose tackle in the middle for McKeesport, Javari Bray. But, I mean, that Bell Vernon, you got to be happy to at least avenge that loss from last year. But you mentioned it, Jeremy. I think a big issue with Braden after that dart, he was throwing off his back foot a lot in that game.
Yeah, he was.
And that's where I think you saw a couple of those interceptions, one that Keemon Spell almost took back to the house. I mean, he is electric as well.
And Coach Humbert put the one interception on himself. He said he was just trying to force the issue too much, and he said Braden forced it. But, he said it started with the play call. So, a big win. That was step one. We talked about how Bell Vernon has this thing separated into 2 seasons. They still have 2 weeks left. That was one thing that Coach Humbert was adamant about in the post-game huddle with his team when they broke it down. They still have 2 weeks of this, and it doesn't get easier. Penn Trafford, who McKeesport beat 17-7 a couple weeks ago. Bell Vernon travels there this week. We'll have coverage from our buddies at the Trib with that one. And then, the big one next week, TJ's coming. And TJ's a lot better than they were last year. So I'm willing to venture a guess that there is no way in hell that they're going to punt the ball to Quentin Martin this year. Although we said it last year, but you never know. But I think that's a safe bet.
That was the deciding, play in that game. You at least felt like it from my standpoint. But, you had the interception by Alonzo that sealed it. But really that punt was the big turning point in that game for Quentin. 97 yards. Yeah.
The biggest thing I'm interested to see from Martin is you shut down Sean Sullivan on the outside like he did last year. I think the one catch Sullivan had last year was when Martin wasn't on him. Mm-hmm. But after that, Martin shut him down. So can they shut him down this year again? Because Elias Lippincott, he's a big runner. He's a big running back. They have a decent running game, but with the 2-quarterback system, they're looking to throw the ball. Every time they throw the ball, they're going to look for Sullivan first.
And
so
I think
you take him out of it, you're going to get them off their game.
You almost wonder if that's a scenario where TJ says, okay, this is a game we have to have it figured out by. We don't want to, You know, it might be kind of the sole guard possession of that quarterback position decided in that Bell Vernon game. And, you know, I think a big thing you look at, too, last year, Jeremy, a lot of the offense was Jordan Mayer.
Yeah.
Well, from that tight end position when Sullivan was locked down. Well, who's filling that void with Mayer not there this year?
I mean, do they come out and try more of a power running game? Because, I mean, let's face it, Lippincott is a big dude. I mean, he's a lot bigger than he was the last couple years. Obviously, he's a growing boy, but, man, he looks thick. He looks solid. You know, can they get him rolling on the ground? Maybe, because McKeesport had some success with Boyd. And, you know, Lippincott's him is twice that size.
Yeah,
it's not, let's see what he does.
It's not very common that you face a running back with his size.
Right.
You know, we saw last year Penn Trafford's quarterback, the type of trouble that he gave Bell Vernon in the running game. I feel like that's kind of the same thing that TJ would want to do in utilizing Elias Lippincott in the running game, being able to just have him, you know, run people over. I mean, it's easier said than done, you know, against a BVA defense that has some size.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, TJ, it's going to be the passing game. I mean, it's going to be, I think, a challenge for teams, not just Bell Vernon, but for teams to game plan for two quarterbacks that you're not really sure when you're going to see them or if you're going to see one over the other more than, you know. Right. So it's going to be a challenge for them to game plan of, you know, are we going to have to game plan more so for Brody Evans to throw 20 passes, or are we going to have to game plan for Luke Costco to throw 20 or 30 passes?
Venturing a guess before we move on to the rest of Friday's schedule, I think, you know, looking ahead, and we'll talk about this more next week, but I think we're probably likely to see more of Costco just for his running ability.
Yeah.
Because Bell Vernon's going to be all after him.
Right.
So, you know, we'll see what happens. And like Alex said, this game may decide who gets the nod the rest of the way through conference play.
Right.
So we'll see what happens.
Think about this, too. I mean, Brody Evans isn't a small guy.
No.
Maybe you use him in different ways other than lining him up under center. Maybe you go full in on Luke Costco and then say, hey, Brody, why don't you go play the tight end position? Maybe add an extra blocker to give, you know, Luke Costco some more room.
I told Tony Battolini that at a golf event earlier this summer, like right before actually week 0, I think we were about a week and a half out. I was like, what's the option? He said, well, it's not my call to make. Luckily, that's not my pay, that's above my pay grade. I said, would you ever think of maybe Brody playing tight end? He said, that's not out of the question. So
I mean, that's honestly when the season started and they said, hey, we're, you know, going to have this quarterback battle. You know, I expected Brody to play some quarterback. I mean, last year he did a really good job under center for them. But, you know, with his size, I mean, you know, you can utilize him in a lot of different ways. And I think Thomas Jefferson might do that against Bell Vernon.
You don't get as far as they did last year without having a good quarterback.
No, not at all. Running through the rest of the lineup from Friday night, I was over at Warrior Stadium for Elizabeth Ford's 45-15 win over East Allegheny. 2 rushing touchdowns apiece for Jace Brown and Charlie Niggett as they continue to just roll through you know, the early season here. I mean, you know, those two both ran for over 100 yards last week. Continue that against East Allegheny. Brown, 10 carries for 57 yards. Charlie Niggett, 7 carries for 50 yards. EF had a 38-7 lead at halftime and just kind of rolled to the victory. Ryan Messina was more involved in the passing game as well, a 57-yard touchdown pass to Connor Fleming, a 14-yarder to A.J. Grease. He was 10 of 17 for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns. Fleming, that 1 touchdown grab to lead the way for ES wide receivers. And Elizabeth Ford still looking good through the first few weeks. Obviously, a big test this Friday. We'll have it the coverage live for you on MVI Live, knock on wood. We're going to hopefully have coverage of that.
There. We will know within the next 3 hours if 100% we are going there.
And you will know.
Yeah, it will be on social media no matter what the option is, because as soon as we're done, as soon as pack up, I'm driving up to Fox Chapel and to Shadyside Academy, and we're going to make sure we can test things out internet-wise that we can stream.
I think on the top of the hill up there, you should be all right.
I should be, but like, so I'm on the phone with the AD, and I'm like, hey, can you tell me how your cell phone signal is? Because like normally that's a good byline. Like, hey, do you get good cell service? Because that's basically what our hotspots run on. Guys like, I don't know.
You know why? He's monitoring John O'Burke's Twitter feed right now. Sorry, I couldn't.
Oh my God.
Anyway, moving on.
They do have a nice press box there.
Yeah,
and
they
a
have
nice area.
Well, that's what he
so-
said. I could be on the opposite side of the field with just me and EF's coaches. So, very accommodating, very willing to let us be there after maybe a kind of just unfortunate situation with Latrobe. Just we're not going to stream you a game where you're looking through a window pane all night long. I mean, that's not fun for anybody. So, very accommodating, and hopefully signal-wise we are good, and we're going to test that out here this afternoon to make sure we are good to go for Friday night. So if you don't want to take that hour trip up to Shadyside Academy, we got you covered.
Yeah, we got you covered on MVI Live, and that's going to be a tough test for Elizabeth Forward as well.
They're looking for some payback.
Yes, they are after last year's playoff loss.
They went 1-1 against Shadyside and ran over them in the first game, and then Shadyside delivers the hammer.
And this is the wild thing about this. This is a Shadyside team that is coming into this year. You thought you were going to have two gigantic freshmen on this roster.
Yeah.
They're at Seton LaSalle.
Yeah.
Khalil Taylor and Nelson Coleman were both Shadyside Academy players coming up into this season, and you thought you're going to get Coleman on the outside, play both ways. Obviously, Khalil Taylor, one of the top players in the state for his class. You don't have them, and I think that was maybe you wonder, because that was pretty late in the summer, so you wonder how short of a turnaround it was to game plan not to have those two big players in your lineup, because we've seen what they've done for Seton LaSalle, they're coming this year.
Yeah,
they're coming.
A very, very good team, and last year I think they took a big step, being able to get that playoff win against Elizabeth Forward, who had pretty good success against them in the past. But for EF, I mean, this is a team that this past week I think was a good sign where they got Ryan Messina more involved in the passing game. Like I said, threw for 184 yards, looked very good back there, had one interception, but it really didn't matter. I feel like he still, had a very strong performance. And then you look at the run game, the offensive line has just been phenomenal, being able to make some room for, both of their star running backs. And, the defense has been dominant as well. I think we were maybe, 1 or 2 plays in before Chris Climbs had his first sack of the night.
Yeah, that's not fun dealing with Climbs and me live.
No, it is not fun for opposing offenses. And right now this EF team looks good through the first few games. Of course, dealing with a new coaching staff, having to adapt to kind of a new system. This is a team that has, come out every week and they're ready to go. So, we'll see what they're able to do against Shadyside. I think win or lose, it's going to be a good test going into conference play. It's going to get them prepared for what they're going to expect.
An honest thought here. How much do you think it helps a school like Shadyside having a guy like Sky Moore get drafted a couple years ago?
Oh, it's phenomenal.
I mean,
yeah.
because it's not like a guy from when Hudson got drafted from McKeesport and everyone's going to flock to McKeesport. That doesn't work that way. But you can, all quote-unquote, commit to Shadyside Academy and play there for your 4 years of high school.
Yeah, and I don't know where to go after that.
I can't do with the commitment thing. It's just too much.
Just threw that in there.
I think Casey might have just fell off his chair.
He might have.
But, I don't know. Moving on.
Jeremy's brain is in a
guys.
blender. What'd you do to we had Jeremy in such a good mood, and then you just crushed his soul for some reason. Anyways, we'll kind of roll through the rest of this here. We'll move on as Yock picked up its first win of the new season, 20-14 over the Charleroi Cougars. Radon Kuroda rushed for almost 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Julian Varenti, 17 carries, 102 yards, as Yock is able to pick up win number 1 of the season. Kuroda also had a passing touchdown, 22-yarder to Ryan Sarver in the first quarter. Charleroi, 2 touchdowns in that one. Jackson Karenko passed to Noah Pletcher, and a Tyler O'Neill 29-yard interception return for a score. The Fraser Commodores were in action once again. A 48-19 loss to Monessen. The good news for the Commodores is they scored 19 points. I feel like that's
a win.
A win, something you can take. They were so close to getting on the board the last 2 weeks. They finally got a couple of scores this week, something you can take from it. Chase Fulmer, a 56-yard reception from Dalen McManus. Fulmer also a 13-yard touchdown run and a 16-yard reception in the fourth quarter. McManus was solid, 14-25, 188 yards, I believe, 2 touchdowns. Fulmer had 82 receiving yards and the 2 scores. I mean, positives that you can take here for Fraser.
Dalen's back. That's big for them.
That's going to be huge.
He's probably, athletically one of the most well-rounded athletes in that school. You know, he's one of the 3 sport athletes. You see him on the basketball court, you see him on the baseball diamond. But, you know, having a guy like him back, I think, is massive because it spreads everything else up for your other athletes you have on that field. And, you know, you put up 19 points against Monessen going into a Jeanette team who I don't think has the playmakers near as much as the Monessen Greyhounds do. It's not the Birch brothers anymore at Jeanette. I mean, maybe do the Commodores get one at home on football alumni night?
Yeah, and guess who will be there?
You?
Me. I will be there. Mainly because the Trib has asked us if we would cover that for them.
Did you know you went to Fraser?
I heard I might be there. I might be there. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to going back and watching that one. Should be a good, decent game. Like Alex said, Jeanette isn't exactly the powerhouse. The Birches are gone. Terrell Pryor's not there. You know, I mean, it's a little bit of a better situation.
Terrell Pryor hasn't been there in like 12 years, Jeremy.
But you never know. I mean, he might suit up. You never know. He probably has a year or 2 left. But I think that
going full like Bishop Sycamore.
Yeah.
And anybody can play.
Yeah, which I found that T-shirt the other day after I watched the BS High documentary. Excellent, by the way. And there's may not be a man I want to punch more in the face than that dude. But anyway, yeah. But I'm looking forward to heading out to Fraser. Always the best concession stand anyway. So I'll be up in the box with the crew up there. So looking forward to it. Anything else?
Talk a little bit about the Monessen Greyhounds.
We got to talk about them.
Davon Burke, 139 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. Tyvon Kershaw had 77 yards and a couple scores for Rodney Johnson on the ground. But Monessen finally got going in terms of getting some offense and a nice victory to kind of catapult them into this Friday's matchup, a big Tri-County South opener against Bentworth on the Greyhounds' home field. Should be I feel like a good matchup. You know, Bentworth is a team that has some talent as well.
Bentworth is not the doormats they used to be.
No, they are not.
They're going to come out and they're going to throw some haymakers, but it's going to be interesting to see, you know, what happens with the Greyhounds. They got to get on the right track now that section play or conference play is starting.
Right.
And now's the time, and they
and
can't look
at dress rehearsal.
They can't look ahead to next week. I was just going to get to that. They can't look ahead to next week because. For me personally, I feel next week is the pseudo conference championship game.
Yeah.
We'll be there.
So I think it's going to be really interesting to see, you know, what Greyhounds team we get.
Yeah. Speaking of that Bentworth team, a 28-21 loss to Leechburg on Friday night. Leechburg scored a touchdown in every quarter en route to the victory. Bentworth did score 2 scores in the fourth quarter. Vitaly Daniels, 3 passing touchdowns, had 166 yards. Daniels, a big guy, a wrestler, you know, over there, and
a good one.
He does wrestle. He wrestles at Bentworth, right? Or where does he wrestle since they don't have a wrestling team?
They do have a wrestling.
Oh, they do have a Charleroi does it. That's right. All right, sorry. But yeah, I mean, Daniel's a big guy, a guy who can run. You know, he's one of their best rushers as well. So definitely going to be a test for the Monessen Greyhounds to stop Vitaly Daniels this week on their home field. Thomas Jefferson, a 28-14 win over West Mifflin. Brody Evans, 6 of 19, 141 yards, and a touchdown to Sean Sullivan, who had 139 receiving yards for the Jaguars. Elias Lippincott, also a 19-yard interception return for a touchdown. Aiden Whalen contributed with a 13-yard rushing score, and Lippincott also had a 3-yard rushing touchdown. Washington, a 40-15 victory over Sarah Catholic, 153 yards for Eddie Lewis on the ground, and then also a 100-yard game for Percy Dudley from the Washington Prexies as they roll past the Sarah Catholic Eagles. West Allegheny 48-6 over the Ringgold Rams. Waynesburg Central, a 27-9 victory over California, and Amani Christian, a 40-14 victory over South Allegheny.
Man, you think Sarah Catholic misses Coach Keem on that defense?
Maybe.
And
a little bit.
I think they're in trouble this week. If that's a ground and pound team with the Borough Buccaneers. I think they threw the ball twice last year when we were there.
Right. Which is weird because they used to run the air raid.
Now they're the old Maryland I with the 4 backs behind or 3 backs behind your quarterback. Old Maryland I ground pound game, and it was a game Sarah Catholic got lucky they escaped with a win last year at home. Yeah. And again, it's not the same Eagle team right now. They can't figure it out.
Defense. There's no defense, and it's weird saying that about a Sarah Catholic team. Looking at those other scores, The thing that surprised me, I don't know, did Cal ever get off the bus at Waynesburg? Or, I know Waynesburg's unbeaten, but Waynesburg's still Waynesburg to a extent.
I mean, there was years when I was in school, you never see Waynesburg even crack a chance of winning a game. I mean, they were rough, and that was the biggest school we had in our area. I mean, out in that area, you're thinking West Green is the #1 football team in that area, the only team that's going to give anybody a game anymore down in that region, you feel like. But Waynesburg kind of took care of business.
I'll tell you what, though, that's scary, though, when a team like California that has so many expectations and a coach in Ed Woods who expects nothing but victories and quality performances, when they get a wake-up call, that's scary for teams in Tri-County South.
Absolutely.
That's all I'm going to say.
Who gets Jeff Morgan gets to find out this week. So.
Yes. But we'll move into a little soccer talk. Obviously, some soccer coverage early on here in this week. Jeremy, you had a tie on Monday between the Bentworth Bearcats and the Monessen Greyhounds. A lot of action over there in that section in 1A.
Yeah, Section 2 1A is going to, they're kind of, Charleroi and SA kind of started to separate themselves a little bit. Now SA dropped one to Chartiers Houston. Big game tonight when Charleroi hosts Waynesburg. I'll be there for that. A lot of action. Failure to convert was the big theme there, especially for Bentworth. Had a lot of opportunities, but the big one, in overtime, Bell Vernon. Oh, geez. They're not there yet. Monessen had a chance to win it. 3.8 seconds left in overtime, and you wouldn't think it, but Sammy Saylor steps up to the spot and, airmails one over the goal, which, Coach Matt Strine said he'd put her there every single time, and she would make 9 out of 10 of those. But, she missed that one and then gives Bentworth some life. They go into double overtime. They get literally an indirect kick from about 5 yards from the goal, and they don't convert. It got kicked right into the wall there at the goal line. But a lot of positive things. Bentworth missing Brina Orsatti. She's out for the year with a knee injury. So, Coach Hamster still shuffling some things around a little bit. But he got good minutes from all of his players in that one. But, sorry, I went Mitch McConnell here and just kind of froze. But it was a good game. But that tie that can throw a wrench into the whole thing here as we wind down. We're about at the midway point of the season, but that tie can loom large when it comes to the final standings. One of those teams would have been in a driver's seat for probably that 4th playoff spot. But now, it's a tie, and there's a chance both of those teams might miss out now. So.
Yeah. I was actually at South Allegheny for that matchup against Char Houston the same night.
Yep.
A 2-1 loss to Char Houston. Had 2 goals in the first half. SA second half looked like a different team. They were pressuring. They were up in that offensive pressure in order to cut into that deficit. They were able to get a goal, but they just couldn't get that equalizer. Much better second half effort by the Gladiators, but they just fall short. They love 1-goal games, as I mentioned in my game story that was in Tuesday's paper. They've been in a handful of 1-goal games, and it was just one of those that didn't end up in their favor. They've won a handful early this season, and their early season win streak comes to an end. But they're still a team that's, I think, going to contend in that section, especially now with, Waynesburg Central having a loss in section play, Char Houston having a loss in section play. Right now, Charleroi is the only unbeaten team in there. So, everybody else is kind of battling, and I think that's probably one of the most interesting sections that we cover here with our local teams.
Right, and the fact that there's a lot of girls, first South Allegheny, the senior leadership, I think that's really what's carrying them. Look at Charleroi with the experience they have with Bella and Boots. I think that's what's helping carry them as well. And, there's one coach in the section that still thinks Waynesburg is the best team. They just can't put it all together. Mm-hmm. So we're going to find out tonight, when Waynesburg travels to Charleroi, what, are they really the best team? Or is Charleroi saying, hey, yes, for real, we are for real. This is, like I said in the preview story, that one piece with Chip Lasky in the back playing that sweeper role, right now, Charleroi is not giving up a lot of goals.
Yeah.
So, Coach Cameron, much to the chagrin of everybody at Belle Vernon, kind of knows what he's doing. So
I think we
see.
should keep you from talking about Charleroi girls soccer based on what you said last week and then what happened that same night when they played Beth Center.
I told you it was going to happen.
what?
You almost jinxed them.
They're fine.
You almost did it.
Fine.
But going back, Jose, to that game, if it wasn't for Ella Lotz,
Yeah.
what a stud. 11 saves. She had 15
Phenomenal.
all year, 11 in that game. Ella Lotz is unreal. And I made this comment on the broadcast, and I had my cousin running Cameron for me. He absolutely thought it was hilarious, and he loved it because he's started paying attention to it. You had Grace McAvoy. She could barely get the ball to her own 40-yard line. Lotz was hitting it to the opposite 40-yard line.
She was just booming them.
Absolute
phenomenal.
mammoth leg. And it was one of those games, too. I mean, I don't know how you felt, Jose, but if South Allegheny scores in the opening 5 minutes, it's a different game. They dominated the pace, but that back line is lethal for Chartiers Houston. When you have a girl like Lauren Rush back there, Shauna Riggle, Mia Reddick and company. I mean, those 4 girls back there, I can't remember the last one slipping me, but, I mean, Lauren Rush is just a staple in there. And then you have from the midfield, Ella Ritchie coming back, a couple of softball standouts. And then that just sets everything up for Weingart and Brose up top. I mean, it's a very good team, but it's a game, if you're South Allegheny, you feel like you should have went to overtime too. I mean,
A lot of close calls in that second half.
Mosquita just couldn't, I think, put it together with her shot. She had a lot of good looks. Same with Keelan Hamilton. I mean,
Abby Allen had a few big opportunities.
Yeah.
She was able to cash in on one of them.
and think about the one, I think it was off the free kick. I think Keelan took it, and it was a drive right in off McAvoy. And Dranko, your leading scorer, with 6 goals. All she has to do is put it on the right side of McAvoy, and it's easy, and she just sends it sailing wide.
Yep.
And how often does Lily Dranko miss that? I think it's the same scenario. You say, okay, well, 9 out of 10 times Lily Dranko is scoring that every single time. I think the biggest disadvantage right now for South Allegheny that I noticed, no one on that front line, maybe Allen, once they started pushing her up more, could match the speed of Lily Dranko.
I was about to say that
And Dranko was in by herself too much, not
Right.
enough. I mean, you look at both goals for Chartiers Houston, all the support was there. You had Capozzoli supporting Brose. You had Weingart supporting Brose and Capozzoli, and Ritchie up front on her goal. I mean, there was all sorts of support. When Dranko would get a run on the outside, nobody was in the middle. She was outrunning Martorelli. She was outrunning everybody. And then, you also look, they had an empty net opportunity that Ackery,
in the first half.
well, Ackery, all she had to do was put it on goal,
Yeah.
never got a shot away. But she made up for that.
A credit too to Char Houston's defense, because they had a defender right on her, that was keeping her from capitalizing on that opportunity. But you mentioned the speed, or lack thereof, really. SA didn't have the speed really to match up to Char Houston's backline either. Anytime that they sent a ball, Char Houston's backline was, getting the ball way faster than, any of SA's
Because it was
forwards.
like Dranko could do it, but nobody else could. I mean, Lauren Rush, we know how good of an athlete she is.
Yeah.
We know how good of an athlete Ella Ritchie is. Just pure, those two are going to help, I think, lead Chartiers Houston to a couple 1A softball championships in the next couple years. That team's going to be lethal, but that's besides the point. But those two girls are just pure athletes. And Dranko, I think, was kind of out on an island until – they started to move Allen up there with her, and that's when they started creating some offensive chances in that second half.
Right.
But, we saw the big block from dead center when Allen got a feed from Dranko, and she did capitalize one time, but, again, one's not going to be enough.
Yeah, and a couple breakaways that Char Houston was able to capitalize on too. That second goal in particular, they're able to chip it over lots, and they're able to, get that breakaway goal, but or a goal really on an empty net.
She's so aggressive, but that's part of the luxury of an Ella Lotz. I mean,
Right.
especially, I think Char Houston almost scored on their first opportunity of the game, because it was about 5-6 minutes into the game. Lotz hasn't touched the ball, and that was something I was like, when is Charlotte or South Allegheny going to get the ball at the midfield stripe and just say, okay, Ella, here's the ball, get a touch?
Yeah.
And Ella wanted to force a touch, and it almost resulted in an early goal. But
Right.
I think you live and die by that aggression, and I would rather have it than not have it. You don't
Yeah.
want a timid goalie in net, and Ella Lotz is anything but
Absolutely. I think SA is a playoff team.
Oh, absolutely.
They just need that one game where they're not kind of fighting for their lives.
And,
They need
what's going to help them is they're winning these 1-goal games.
Right.
We always
right.
say you have to learn how to win the close ones if you're going to take that next step. Right now, they are.
Last year, they lost to Charleroi by 1. They lost to Bentworth by 1, and they tied Bentworth. Well, you win that tie against Bentworth, or you flip the script in that other game, you're in the playoffs last year. They barely missed.
Right.
And let's just talk about how next Monday is setting up. You got Charleroi going to SA. You got EF going to TJ. And then on the volleyball side, which we'll get to in a minute, you got Fraser visiting Southmoreland in a non-section game, and they're both undefeated.
Three huge
you also
matchups.
I know SA is not necessarily an undefeated team, but I think they're going to give Sarah a game on Monday as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, that SA team is not the same team you've seen the last couple years with Ava Chismar or Allie, the younger one. She's absolutely lethal as well. I mean, we got some good volleyball teams in the Valley.
Yeah.
Talking a little bit about today's paper, a couple of big notable things to talk about. The Ringgold boys soccer team is looking legit early on here. They get a 1-0 shutout of the Trinity Hillers, 7-0 on the season. George Stasko with the lone goal last night, nice set piece that kind of led to that. Michael Stasko's corner kick right to Aiden Weaver, who is able to get ahead on it, and Stasko is able to get it across the goal line for the goal as Ringgold staying, alongside Bethel Park in the Section 3-3A standings. But as I understand, first 7-0 start, I believe, in program history for them, as the Rams are able to get a big victory on their home turf. Just a different-looking Ringgold team. It seems like this year a lot of the guys who've been getting some experience over the last several years are starting to put it together under first-year head coach Rob Fabian, who came over from Greensburg Central Catholic. Talking a little bit about some volleyball action. The Fraser Commodores, a big 3-set win over California. Mandy Hartman with win number 350 in her career. And Fraser, California was coming in high off a huge win over Mapletown, and Fraser was able to get the job done.
Yeah, 350-93 is her career record. Just unbelievable.
The GOAT.
Assistant coach Don Hartman texted me last night and let us know he wanted to be sure of the number when he got home, so I was able to add that to Adam's story last night. But yeah, California always plays Fraser tough. We call it the Hartman Bowl. There's some friendly rivalry there because of Don Hartman's employment and history at California. Coach Hartman called last night and said, it was like standing room only. You would have thought there was like a professional game or something going on there, not just a high school.
Well, it was the Cal Vulcan Bowl as well because of
Salisbury and
the Salisburys and the Duns.
Yeah, but yeah, California didn't want the smoke though. They couldn't. 3-0, 25-22, 25-14, 25-21. Again, you see from the stats, it's the balance that Fraser's showing this year. Mm-hmm. It's not revolving around, two players in Braylon Salisbury and Jensen Hartman that aren't there anymore. It's, it's Addison Schultz, it's Maddie Salisbury, it's Grayson Hartman, it's Grace Vaughn. There's just so many weapons they have there. They're going to be a really tough out for anybody. I'm thinking it's going to come down to them and Sarah Catholic again, honestly.
I really hope we get that again.
It's going to be fun. So, they just have to Adam texted me last night. He's seen California Mapletown. He's seen Fraser play. I believe he saw Carmichael's play. I don't know. I know Fraser plays Carmichael's at home on Tuesday, so that's going to be one to watch. But
literally,
yeah. So I think that Adam said straight out he doesn't think anybody in this section is going to keep up with Fraser. So just all you could say is congratulations to Mandy for winning that number 350. As long as the Commodores keep their head on, and California, they're a good team and they have some senior leaders, but they also have some young talent. So they showed with that 5-set win against Mapletown, they're not going to make it easy on anybody. They'll be in the playoffs, I'm sure. They just got to put it together against the good teams.
And I think it's one of those things. Fraser's set up too for the long run.
They are.
It's not just a 2-year thing. Like last year wasn't it. This year's not the end of it. They are set up with, you look at an Addie Schultz as a sophomore, a Salisbury as a sophomore. You have Allie Monack, just a freshman. I mean, you still have Grayson for a couple years. You still have Vaughn for a couple years.
All you're losing this year is Molly Yock at libero.
And, I mean, I think they have pieces to replace that. And, you look at the other side of things with the team we said we think they're going to see. This is their year. If they don't get it this year, it's going to be probably a year hiatus from Sarah Catholic getting back to where they want to be. I mean, they have a massive freshman class, but they have a massive senior class. That starting lineup is senior, and basically one junior in there.
Right.
I mean, you have Emerson Trahan, a senior, Brooke Kane and Olivia Thatcher, who see time. They're both seniors. Cassidy's a junior. Caitlin Coley's a senior. Battles is a senior. Goldstein's a senior. Constantinu's a senior. Hussein's a senior. Pasternak's just a sophomore, sees time, and Kate Clark's a senior. I mean, it's absolutely senior latent, this lineup for Sarah Catholic.
And the thing, if it gets down to that Fraser matchup again, let's say hypothetically Fraser comes into that match undefeated again like they were last year. Are they in Sarah Catholic's head? Hey, they lost Jensen Hartman, yay, but they're still undefeated, and we got to go out and face them again. That is what I think is going to be the biggest hurdle for Sarah Catholic, remembering how Fraser dismantled them last year.
Yeah.
If in that situation, if it is in a championship game again. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it comes down. But, there's some other volleyball teams in the Valley. Elizabeth Ford is on the rise again. I mean, I
think Ringgold's better this year.
Ringgold is better. Bell Vernon just beat EF last night in 5 sets. So Bell Vernon's, they're getting there, and the one thing I notice about Bell Vernon is they're starting to do clinics for youth. They're starting to get the momentum of building a program as well. So,
but I'll tell you, I mean, out of anybody in that classification or section, TJs will be the public school champs again. They were last year.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the program that everybody in that section striving
That's
to
the
be.
best serving team I think I have seen. And I thought, Coach Ron Kelly had a good serving team last year. You lose Kate Galliotto. Of course, you lose Delaney Concannon, who is your premier offensive piece. You lose the Tarrant sisters. But they're better serving this year than they were last year. Everybody's good. Mia Fox, Bryce Singer. I mean, that team is absolutely loaded.
You know what they should serve is they should serve results to the Mon Valley Independent.
I agree with you.
It's hard when your coach doesn't take stats, so whatever.
It is. But, I mean, going back to that game last night, the Sarah GCC game.
3-1 win for
3-1 win. Neither team lost a set coming into that. And it came out, it looked like we were going to go back and forth 5 sets all night. I mean, the largest lead was 2 points through the opening 26 points. And Sarah busted it open to a 21-14 lead. And it's like, okay, Sarah's putting set 1 to bed. Well, a 7-0 run by Abby D at the line. All of a sudden, 21's on the board, and Sarah Catholic was able to kind of squeak that one out, 25-21. Then they just dominated. 25-9 in set 2. But Sarah Catholic had not surrendered the lead in the opening 2 sets. They led through the entirety or were tied. And all of a sudden, I think Sarah got a little too comfortable. And that's, I think, could be an issue for the Eagles if they get in those comfortable spots. Is first point of the set, it was an easy side out on the near side. No reason for Emerson Trahan to try to touch the ball. Tries to go cross court, sends one into the stands, and GCC rolled in a 25-11 set 3 win. But Sarah Catholic rebounded, 12-0 run with Trahan at the line to start set number 4. They won a 25-11. But I'll tell you, this team lives and dies by Maria Goldstein. Absolute monster emotional leader out there. 13 kills last night for Goldstein, had a trio of blocks. Clark had 2 blocks. Hussein had a couple blocks. I mean, Maria Goldstein is one of the better hitters in the area when she is on. And again, she is the emotional catalyst of that team, who is kind of nonstop. That team does not stop moving on the court between Caitlin Coley. She was basically in the stands 3 times last night, saving balls that earned the Eagles points. They're experienced, they're talented, but as you said, Jeremy, if they get to a point where they're playing a Fraser team again that somehow, which I think is a big possibility, that Fraser is undefeated coming into that matchup again, you look at it as, wow, they lost their best players. All these young kids are still perfect.
Well, and I think the thing with Fraser, and Coach Hartman said it, it's their section. They're going to be tested in a section. They might win every game by a sweep. They're going to be close games. They're going to be hotly contested, and I think that ultimately is what helped them last year beat Sarah Catholic. Because let's be honest, Sarah Catholic doesn't play anybody in their section.
GCC is the best team they'll face.
No, that section is a flaming dumpster. So let's just call it what it is. They're bad. They're not good. Like you said, GCC was the best team they're going to face.
Kind of like Fraser softball's section.
Yeah, almost. Yeah. But,
I was talking to Kate Clarkstad after the game last night. He said, this hurts us so much. He said, we're not ready once we get into the playoffs.
No.
And it's nothing.
They rely on just how good they are once they get to the playoffs.
Right.
Because if they weren't as good as they were, or as good as they are, they wouldn't have made it as deep as they did. Because while they weren't prepared by their section, they were well versed in what they were going to expect and what they had to do to be successful.
I'm going to put it this way: GCC is not GCC anymore. It's not the team that had a Rebecca and Emily Hess and a Grace Petnich. These girls that are starting wouldn't see the floor on those teams. I mean, those teams that went up against Bishop Canavan the 2 years prior to Sarah and Fraser moving down to 1A, these girls wouldn't see the floor. Maybe one or two of them would get some playing time. They'd be in the rotation. But, I mean, they don't have a hitter like Grace Petnich in the middle. They don't have a hitter like Rebecca Hess who can hit it from the outside, from the back line. And Emily Hess was absolutely pivotal on that team as well. One of my favorite volleyball players I've had the chance of watching. Just you knew what she was thinking every aspect of the game. Her emotions truly were worn on her sleeves. But they have nobody like that on this team. Dennis is their best player, and besides her, they're not the same teams that GCC is used to having. So even though you see GCC, it's not the same GCC you think of from years past.
Right. And you guys mentioned a couple teams that are on the rise as well. Ringgold, a 3-0 win over Connellsville last night. They're up to 4-1 overall, 2-1 in section play. South Allegheny, a 3-2 win over Fort Cherry. Rounding out some of the other scores, York, a 3-0 win over McGuffey. Of course, you mentioned Bell Vernon beating Elizabeth Forward in 5 sets. Bentworth 3-1 over Charleroi. And we also had some coverage of Charleroi's 3-0 win over Beth Center on Monday in today's roundup. But kind of moving on here a little bit, wanted to kind of mention some stuff that happened over the weekend with some notable college performances that we had
those
for
Vulcans?
We'll talk a little bit about the Vulcans here in a second. A huge victory for them over at Adamson Stadium on Saturday. Some area standouts: TJ's Jake Pugh, big time performance in Washington, and Jefferson's victory over Bethany on Saturday. 13 of 17, 294 yards and 5 touchdowns. That came after a 3-touchdown performance in the first week. IUP had a couple of local standouts. South Allegheny's Derek Lockhart had 3 catches for 79 yards and the lone touchdown for the Crimson Hawks, a 39-yard score in their loss to East Stroudsburg.
Can we talk about the end of that game?
Just what an ending. What a just crazy ending. But I wanted to do mention, though, Thomas Jefferson graduate Logan Danielson had 3 tackles. Bell Vernon's Cole Waitman coming up big once again. 2 tackles, a tackle for loss, and a sack for the Crimson Hawks, who could not get a playoff at the end, could not get a game-winning field goal. They end up losing by 1
To East
Stroudsburg. I don't know if there has been a bigger upset in recent years in the PSAC.
I don't know, but that was just bad. And
you didn't. I sent you the video.
You sent me the video, and it's probably a good thing that the audio didn't carry over.
Yeah,
but I just can't.
Just an unreal loss.
Unreal. I love it.
But another former Vulcan, we mentioned Derek Lockhart, who also a former Cal U standout. But Jaquay Jackson from Sarah Catholic is up at the Division I level playing for Rutgers. In Saturday's 36-7 win over Temple, he was able to have 4 catches for 95 yards at a 61-yard reception. Of course, an all PSAC West first team selection, doing some big things for Division I Rutgers. And congratulations to Jaquay. I mean, a great kid that we've gotten to know over the last couple of years. Had a great career over at Cal, and getting an opportunity to play at the Division I level, very well deserved, and is making the most of it.
And that's a situation where I don't mind the transfer portal as much.
Yeah,
I hate it because it's free agency. Let's say what it is. But when a guy goes from D2 up to D1, we've seen it with Jaquay.
Ian Edenfield from
Ian Edenfield
Laurel
went
Highlands.
from Cal to Oklahoma State, which
Yeah.
is
Insane.
still baffling, you know. But you don't mind to see it as much when they're clearly going to better themselves, not. Oh, I'm just going to go because I'm not playing here.
Right.
I'm just going to go somewhere else.
And Jaquay was playing quite a bit. He was Cal's leading receiver the last couple of years. Last year, he was one of the best in the conference.
He's one of the best in the
best
nation.
in D2, yeah. So to see him get an opportunity at the Division I level, it's awesome. He's like we said, we've gotten to know him the last couple of years, gotten to talk to him a lot, and he very much deserves that opportunity to show what he can do at the Division I level.
For sure,
absolutely.
Also wanted to mention, since K-Mac's watching, we got to mention the first career goal for Eben McIntyre.
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Goal number 1 for Eben on Saturday in the 3-0 win over number 9 Wake Forest. But congratulations to Eben getting that first.
GWG too.
Yeah, and nice to be able to get it off a nice set piece. Gets it on a header over there, and I'm sure that the McIntyre family very, very proud of what Eben was able to accomplish. Had his first career start, and now he gets his first career goal. So congratulations to Eben, the all-time leading goal scorer in Charleroi boys soccer history, able to get goal number 1. I'm sure the first of many for the Pitt soccer team. But yeah, Alex, you did mention a big victory for the California Vulcans on Saturday in their season opener against Kutztown. 24 unanswered points for the California Vulcans.
Bobby Boyd made his debut.
And Bobby Boyd made his debut. Nice ovation for him as he was able to get his first career carry. Ran it for 3 yards. Only had 2 carries, 4 yards in the game, but was able to make his debut. And I feel like as the season goes on, we might see even more of Bobby Boyd. I know Gary Dunn was very pleased with the way that he played in camp and the way that he's been able to kind of show off what he can do. And there's always a ton of McKeesport talent, and we obviously have Dom Solomon from Clairton, who has been a standout. But in this win, 24 unanswered in the fourth quarter alone for Cal as they went into that fourth quarter trailing 20-7.
Can I get a timer out real quick?
Yeah.
We didn't mention it. How about them Bears, though, this week?
Yeah.
They dismantled Olsh.
Clairton with a huge victory over Olsh.
Unreal. But go back to what you're saying. We can't not talk about at least mention that Clairton absolutely steamrolled Olsh.
Absolutely. A huge victory for the Bears.
First win for Mike Wright Jr. as the quarterback, too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And
we'll see them soon. We'll see them soon.
And Dom Solomon had a huge performance for California, was very evident on the defensive side of the ball, so representing Clairton very well. A huge victory for Cal. Ibrahim Sanago was probably the best defensive player on the field. He was actually just named the Player of the Week, the National Player of the Week for his performance in that victory. A nice performance for Eric McCann on the ground. He was able to have 2 touchdowns, almost broke for 100 yards. And the Cal debut for Davis Black, the new starting quarterback. Of course, 4 years of Noah Mitchell. Now Davis Black steps into that role. 19-26, 192 yards, had a touchdown pass, and he had the game-winning touchdown run. This is a Cal team that, defensively in that second half, they were able to shut down Kutztown. First half was just, they weren't able to make things happen. They weren't able to they had some mistakes offensively, some drop balls. Defensively, they had some misassignments, and that was just the story of it. In the second half, they turned things around, made some adjustments. The defense forced some big turnovers. Sonogo had a big sack on the second-to-last Kutztown drive that led to Davis Black's touchdown run, and then had a strip sack on the first play of the last drive that led to them getting some separation. But big-time win there for Cal to start the season.
And that's the thing with Cal U. Defense is never going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Their defense is always among the top. Offense, it's going to take them a while. You mentioned Davis Black. He could run the ball a little bit more than Noah Mitchell did. So that's one thing that's going to be slowly integrated into the offense.
Right.
Eric McCann probably had more carries and more yards in this game than he's had in a long time. You're going to throw Bobby Boyd. If he keeps performing, you're going to go from a pass-heavy team to a run-heavy team.
Yeah.
Or a more leaning run team. So, it's still transition offensively for Cal U, but I think, and I'm going to say it again, they're always going to be Cal U. You're going to see them transition a little bit offensively, but defensively they're still going to be strong. They're still going to hit everybody that steps in front of them. Their defense is legit, and it's going to continue to be legit.
A game like that, so easy to get defeated, and they did not. They came back, and I mean, you saw a opponent that did get defeated. I look at that pass interference call and that game-tying drive. I think that's one they didn't like the call. I mean, I had the game stream up. I can understand not liking it, but you can't let that. Can't
let it affect what you're doing.
And I think
especially when it puts Cal on the 2-yard line. And you need a goal line stand right there. You need to step up and
then
make that
what
play.
do? They don't get the goal line stand. They don't kill time. They don't save clock. And then one play later on offense they fumble the football away.
Yeah, and even if they don't fumble the football away, they still had less than a minute on the clock to get all the way downfield.
Maybe they should have called Bell Vernon's defense.
Maybe
they could have used the laps.
Yeah. But I mean that offensively, this is I think it'd be a work in progress for Cal. I think there was a big confidence booster to see them be able to generate offense in that fourth quarter and really in the second half in total. But this is a team that Gary Dunn wasn't pleased with the running game, but they have a good amount of athletes in that running game. Not even just Bobby Boyd and Eric McCann, but you got a guy like Devontae Williams as well. It's going to make an impact. The big thing I think too is getting these pass catchers, more experience, because really, aside from Willis coming into the season, they don't have a ton of experience in terms of wide receivers. Obviously with Jaquay Jackson leaving and things like that. Eric Willis is really the only guy coming back that has experience in terms of being a starting wide receiver. So it's going to be interesting to see how the offense adapts and gets better as the season goes on. But a big victory for Cal going into what's going to be another tough matchup this weekend against a visiting Shepherd team.
Yeah, great for them to get the win, and hopefully continues on this season. And I don't want to be the damper and the bringer of bad news, Jose, but do we want to go individual segments instead of national? Quick. Obviously, the Steelers sucked up.
No, I'll talk about that in my individual segment. I'll wrap it up real quick.
And apologies, Coffee Shop, gracious host, 2-year anniversary. They're closing early today because of a trade show, so we don't want to hold them up from that. So, but again, Jose, obviously Steelers sucked. Jeremy, segment time. We airing some grievances, or we let
me go first? Okay. The only thing I have to say is the Steelers stink. They stunk it up against 49ers. Let's see. What else do I want to say?
I had a Brandon Ayuk on my bench.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
No. Not
Kenny
at all.
Pickett just stunk. It wasn't because he had a concussion. Maybe he did, but obviously you didn't know that until afterwards because everybody's starting to post it completely after the game, like, oh, maybe this is why. No, maybe he just stunk on Sunday.
I'm not going to go out and say they stink yet.
They're going to be in trouble without Cam.
Their coach stinks. Their offensive coordinator stinks. I'm going to give you that.
I mean,
will say
everybody's to blame Sunday.
I will say a lot of it had to do with just how damn good San Francisco is.
I mean, but that's the thing. I mean, everybody coming off the preseason was like the Steelers are gonna beat San Francisco.
Because we all know that doesn't mean anything.
Everybody said that they were going to beat them. I'm like, you realize the 49ers are still the 49ers, right? They still have one of the best defenses in the NFL. They still have a very good offense with one of the best running backs in football, a very talented wide receiver duo in Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, and Brock Purdy, who proved on Sunday that, guess what, newsflash, he might be better than Kenny Pickett.
And here's the thing, Brock Purdy, his strength's not the deep ball. They don't need to run it with San Francisco.
Yeah.
Get it to McCaffrey. Get it to Ayuk, who's a phenomenal route runner. Get it to Deebo Samuel, who he's taken his coach's challenge in stride. I mean, they look like
nobody else on defense aside from TJ Watt showed up.
You can't wrap Cam Hayward in there. Not his fault.
Right. I'm not wrapping Cam Hayward because up until he got hurt, he actually was doing
Cam
what
Hayward,
he does.
And
but I never really think about Cam Hayward as he always does his job every game. He's very consistent.
Well, he won't be consistent for the next couple months, except he's not playing until about Thanksgiving.
But TJ Watt was the only one who showed up. They just let Brock Purdy do whatever he wanted in the passing game. They let Christian McCaffrey, right after you get some momentum before the half, they let Christian McCaffrey just kill their spirit. So we'll see what they do this weekend. Honestly, after what Cleveland did to Cincinnati, I don't even know if the Steelers can beat the Browns at this point.
Without
so
Deontay, without Hayward,
we'll see.
Good luck.
We'll see what happens.
I still think the Steelers will beat the Browns. Anyway, I'm foregoing my segment to bring in a new segment. We have our bleacher creature out there, and I will swear on everything that is holy. It's not me. It's not you. It's not Alex.
Definitely not me. I don't sit the bleachers.
We have
what's a bleacher?
Right, exactly. We're press box fiends. But this letter comes in, and we're going to make this a segment. The Bleacher Creature says he's sending us one every week, and I will say it is a he. It is a he. But so
you can't say that
here's
nowadays.
the letter. Here's the letter we received, and it's not to us, but it's for us to broadcast out there. All right, thoughts from the bleachers. Here we go. I'm going to try to read this with like some energy, but we'll see.
Jeremy's just learning how to read, everybody, so just bear with him.
It's okay.
I can
Take
write,
your time.
I just can't read. More than a lot of people on Facebook. Anyway, parents, and let me say this before I go any further. This is me quoting the letter. I hope we all, in caps, win at life and your child gets everything that he or she deserves from the hard work they put in. But, big but. But, 4 more buts. If you're going to try and tell other folks that your child is being offered this or that from a school, please, capitals, do the research on what said school in what said division can even offer. If you can Google how long it takes to reheat wings in the air fryer, you damn sure can look up this info before trying to pass along some BS.
Wings in the air fryer
Good
are
quote.
good.
They are excellent.
Big air
Excellent.
fryer wing guy.
Mm-hmm.
Next,
We get some wings next week for the show?
for all our players out there and kids, social media posting. I will keep this one kind of short. It takes more than a media day picture with some rap lyrics underneath it to actually be a good player. You got to put the work in to be, quote, Himmy Johns. That's so boring.
Himmy Johns.
Himmy Johns, as some of you like to say. Put the work in when folks aren't looking, and everything else will be fine. Valley folks, no, I do not work for the MVI, but good Lord, cut these folks some slack. Appreciate that.
That was nice.
I like that.
Nice. They are doing the best they can to cover local athletics, but it's a two-way street. How many times? This does sound like something
Thank
I
you,
would write,
Bleacher
but it's
Creature.
not me. Even I know the ADs and coaches do not provide the correct info in a timely manner or any info at all. Last but not least, kids and parents. I just read this, and I'm going to call out Grayson Hartman because she just did it. Pay the money to buy the MVI picks. It's not a lot. I'm tired of seeing posts with the MVI watermark across your face. Don't be a chooch, whatever that means.
That's funny.
Until next week.
Grayson posted a picture with the MVI
On
watermark
Facebook, yeah. She just posted a picture of herself from
Be
the
better.
gallery last night. Just be better, guys.
God.
Be better.
But, yes, thank you to the Bleacher Creature, and I can't wait till next week.
Oh, absolutely.
But,
This is fantastic.
It's great. It's going to be a new segment. He passes, so we're going to do this every week. This is not anyone in our circle either. That's what's the best thing.
Can we get Davis to get some Bleacher Creature shirts?
We still got to get our Valley Sports guys shirts.
We have those.
No, the
have
ones
those.
with our faces on them. Our Step
Well,
Brothers
we need
ones.
caricature.
Yeah, we need.
Don't make me pull out the. We need the Step Brothers poster.
Yeah, we'll bring it. I have it.
Yeah,
I actually was
okay.
going to frame it and put it in my.
Yeah.
No, I'm
my,
telling you, Bleacher Creature shirts.
I was
Bleacher
going to put it
Creature
in my
shirts.
man cave. That was going to be the first thing I put in the man
I'm
cave.
going to reach out to the Bleacher Creature and see if we can use his likeness. Well, we don't want to use his likeness.
No,
anyway, his identity,
we got to do like a
but-
silhouette or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm gonna get that framed and we can put it in here and then
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it in my new man
beautiful. We
cave.
could
in
all
my new
sign it.
house. Yeah,
I bet you Lisa would just like leave it in here too.
I don't see why not.
Since this is the official home,
Pretty
we
much.
could just slide that coffee picture over.
Yeah,
and-
just right up there.
Anyway.
And listen, I'm here enough. I'll just take that picture down if it's not up and just put it back up. Nope, staying here.
Anyways, we'll wrap things up since everybody's trying to get out of here. But thank you to our sponsors for the upcoming football season. I want to give a shout out to Planet Roof, E-Paints, and Highway Appliance for their continued support of the Valley Sports Guys podcast and of MVI Live. As we close things out,
Also, shout out to Marie Salegas for just sticking with us.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I know
Thank
she's had to
you.
deal with some
Thank
stuff.
you.
Marie, appreciate it.
yes, thank
Hey,
you
big,
for your
shout
support,
out to
of course.
my 6th grade assistant coach, Chad Corrado. Our 6th grade team's going to be nasty this year.
What Chad
just
bring
saying.
to the table in terms of
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Like, honestly, I'm
You got Pyro?
practically not even the head coach.
got
No,
Pyro?
but we have Metallica during
I
practice.
think
It's
for
great.
one game you should have
I
Chad.
heard that was going to the
you
board
should,
meeting.
You should have Chad Corrado beard night, and everybody gets a fake beard.
Maybe.
Instead of
Yeah, that
Safari
might work.
Larry.
Chad, what do you think? I think that's a good idea.
He's
I
in.
mean,
He's
whatever.
in.
Chad committed to the 6th grade team.
Yep. But as we close things out, I'd like to remind all of you to subscribe to the Valley Sports Guys podcast here on our MVI Live YouTube channel. Be sure to follow us on all our social media platforms, whether it's MVI Live, MVI Sports, all of our personal channels. We have coverage on Twitter, and we've been using our Instagram a lot more, Facebook. So be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. If you're interested in advertising with us on the Valley Sports Guide podcast, there is advertising available. We'll be sure to mention your company on every single episode. We might even just let you take over the Valley Sports Guide podcast and sponsor the whole thing if you want to. Just let us know, and we'll talk things over. We'll
just do it.
Negotiate, whatever. But yeah, thank you again to His Place Coffee Community and more in Menneson for allowing us to spout our nonsense.
The bleacher creature.
And nice.
Ooh.
I like it.
Ooh.
Just get that silhouette.
Yeah.
Maybe add some headphones and, like a pennant of a local team or like an MVI. But yeah, we got it. We're going to do it. This is going to happen.
Oh.
This is going to happen. We're going to do
Fantastic.
it. The bleacher creature.
We always talk about these things, and we just never do it.
We did get the Valley Sports Guy shirts. We did talk about that. That happened. So
I don't know. There's a lot of MVI.
I will go to B Graphics right after.
I don't know. There's a lot of MVI Live merch that I do not have.
Right.
Nazareth.
Naz.
Anyways.
Naz.
But thank you to His Place for hosting us, allowing us to spout on nonsense, and for letting us stay in past closing here today. But for Jeremy Slew, for Alex Lyons, I'm Jose Negron. Episode number 82 of the Valley Sports Guys podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for your continued support. We will see you next week here at His Place for episode number 83 of the VSG podcast.